Here, in this section of the book, we're going to learn how to factor quadratic equations. I hope you remember what factoring means. If you don't, let me give you a quick review on factoring. If I am asked to factor 12, that means I've got to find all the numbers that when I multiply them times each other will give me 12. So here the factors of 12 would be 3 and 4, 2 and 6, 1 and 12. Because when I multiply 3 times 4 together, I get 12. When I multiply 2 times 6 together, I get 12. And when I multiply 1 times 12 together, I get 12. If I was asked to factor 16, I would think of all the numbers that when I multiply them together, give me 16. Those would all be factors of 16. So 2 times 8 would be a factor of 16. 4 times 4 would be factors of 16. And 1 times 16 would be factors of 16. Because all those numbers, when I multiply them together, give me 16. Here, I'm asked to factor x squared minus 9. That means that I've got to think of two numbers, or two terms, that when I multiply them together will give me x squared minus 9. This can be a little confusing until you get the hang of it. So we're going to take it step by step and until you get the hang of it, and maybe you can do it a little bit faster once you get the hang of it. So step one, for me at least, the first thing I like to do when I'm factoring is I start off by writing parentheses. Okay? Then I look at my first term. I ask myself, what are factors of the first term? Well, the only factors of the first term are x times x, because those are the only two numbers that will give me x squared. So x and x are going to go in the first place in the parentheses, okay? 1, 1. Okay, now I'm going to figure out what's going to go in place of number 2. The way I do that is by looking at the last term. The last term here happens to also be the second term. So the last term is 9. So I think of all the factors of 9. 3 times 3 and 9 times 1. Okay? Now, I know that my factor is going to be 3 times 3. The factor that I'm going to use, because usually a quadratic equation has 3 terms. Usually a quadratic equation has 3 terms. This one just happens to have only 2 terms, but usually it has 3 terms. And the reason this one only has 2 terms is because the factor of 9 that we're supposed to use is 3. And when I multiply this out with the 3's, I'm going to get this. X times x equals x squared. X times negative 3 gives me negative 3x. 3 times x gives me positive 3x. And positive 3 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 3. Now if I work this out, what I get is x squared, and negative 3x plus 3x cancel out, because negative 3 plus a 3x equals 0, and what I'm left is with negative 9. If I was to put 9 and 1 here and then multiply it out, I wouldn't get the right number. I wouldn't get x squared minus 9. I would get some other number. Here, let's do it just for fun, just to see what we get. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Positive 9 times x is a positive 9x. And positive 9 times a negative 1 is a negative 9. X squared, negative 9x, a positive 9x and a negative x equals a positive 8x, because the signs are different, so I subtract, and my bigger number has the positive, so my answer is positive, and then I just get negative 9. You see, I don't get this. So this is not the factor. X plus 9 times x minus 1 are not factors, because when I multiply them together, I don't get x squared minus 9. What I get is x squared plus 8x minus 9. And that's not what I want. So it's like saying that I say factor 12, and you write 3 and 9, and you try to tell me, well, that's a factor. No, it's not, because 3 times 9 does not equal 12. What's the same thing here? X plus 9, x minus 1, when I multiply them together, do not give me x squared minus 9. So they cannot be factors. These two cannot be factors. So that's how I know that the factor is x plus 3, x minus 3, because when I multiply it out, I get x squared minus 9, x squared minus 9. Just like the factor of 12 is really 3 times 4, or 2 times 6. Because when I multiply it out, I get 12. That's how I know that this is a factor. So if you want to check if you have your right factors, multiply them out, and you should get whatever it is that you're trying to factor.